Okay, here we go, ladies and gentlemen, and it's time for whatever episode of Superstars this is. I don't know, I'll remember once I check back on previous ones. But anyway, another edition of Superstars, of course, joined Renneweed between Raw, A.A.W, and SmackDown, and ladies and gentlemen, the brand that will give to you your main event here tonight on said Superstars is going to be the Raw brand, as we have a little bit of a rematch of the beginning of Universe Mode with The Miz taking on Apollo Crews. Of course, Apollo Crews, the first ever Intercontinental Champion of Universe Mode. The Miz, the first ever Challenger. Of course, Crews won the first meeting, then they both lost the second meeting because Fatal 4-Way type stuff in Week 8, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so that will be your main event here tonight, just to see which one of these two men could climb up the power rankings after, no longer being in contention for the Intercontinental Championship, nor holding the Intercontinental Championship in the lines of Apollo Crews to have, being a former Intercontinental Champion, I guess. Well, ladies and gentlemen, to kick things off here tonight on Stars, kick things off with ECW action and what has happened on the previous few weeks of ECW, where we had Corey Graves previously defeat Finn Balor in the Sin pay-per-view in an impromptu matchup where Corey Graves begged GM Paul Heyman to put him on the card while the show was going on. Heyman did put him in the last second decision. The man he appointed him against was Finn Balor. And so, of course, Corey Graves did win. And then he also won in your previous episode of ECW, along with Rusev and Johnny Mundo. These two have been back at it, along with Drew McIntyre for the past couple of weeks. As see right there, both Mundo and Balor, the double team suplex to Corey Graves moments ago. And ladies and gentlemen, we are kicking things off with a rivalry matchup between Corey Graves and Finn Balor. Of course, Rusev and Johnny Mundo, they've been having their own little time rivalry against Drew McIntyre. He has occasionally rolled in, so it's really been a three-way rivalry, but McIntyre has been showcasing these still all that much. He'll probably be sent down to the NXT developmental roster once the NXT show actually starts in week 15 after the SmackDown exclusive Bound for Glory pay-per-view. More on that later on as the show progresses, as now, ladies and gentlemen, we got Rusev against Finn Balor here. Of course, Rusev, he's been pretty dominant in his matches against Mundo. Of course, John Mundo, I believe he won the last matchup in the last episode of ECW, as Cedar Balor taking a nasty end on the outside, and Corey Graves now working the legs, what he does best against Balor specifically. And our opponents, of course, Corey Graves had a successful debut matchup against Dean Ambrose, the last episode, the ECW Go Home show before the Sin pay-per-view in week 14. So that was, in week 13 really, but the Sin pay-per-view was, of course, the last thing of week 13. So yeah, it was week 13 though. Now, of course, ladies and gentlemen, Corey Graves and Balor, not that much of a nice blood, more like bad blood between these two. Balor, he has lost his last two matches to Corey Graves. The only men that have ever defeated Finn Balor here in Universe Mode have been Braun Strowman, Raven, and Corey Graves. Let's see right there, Rusev picks up the victory, hitting Balor with the gift. Graves wearing him down, and ladies and gentlemen, no disqualifications, of course, in these 30 matches. Pretty quick matchup. Rusev gets an upset victory over Balor, and now, add that to the list of names that have defeated Finn Balor, including Rusev now. But Balor, he has defeated 4 other superstars before. Well, anyway, of course, the NXT roster shall have its first ever episode once we end off the Bound for Glory pay-per-view, and it will be the last show we have of week 15. We're currently still in week 14, so we still gotta wait a couple more days to that, but not to say, definitely gonna be exciting, as we're gonna have a whole lot of new superstars and some old showcased superstars on Raw, SmackDown, and ECW who need some developmental help. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, the AJ Styles non-title open challenge continues. First, it was Ken Shamrock, Styles won. Second, it was CM Punk, Styles lost. And of course, in your last episode of Raw, Ricochet or Prince Puma, he did announce that he was gonna challenge for the non-title open challenge. And ladies and gentlemen, we have gotten word that it's not gonna be Prince Puma. It is going to be Prince Puma's original ego or original status, and that is Ricochet. And of course, SmackDown. We previously had a 7-woman battle royal to showcase our SmackDown Women's Division. And ladies and gentlemen, the final 3 in that matchup was Carmella, Alexa Bliss, and Mickie James. Carmella ultimately ended up winning the matchup, and so it is now announced it's going to be a triple threat between Mickie James, Alexa Bliss, and Carmella for the SmackDown Women's Championship on SmackDown Week 15 after Bound for Glory. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that's definitely going to be exciting, as we are going to crown the first ever SmackDown Women's Champion of Universe Mode. And of course, Ricochet, he is currently the X Division champion of the Raw roster. And so we shall see how that works out if he is to win the non-title open challenge that he said he was going to accept against AJ Styles. And it's not going to be Prince Puma. It is going to specifically be Ricochet. So, of course, Ricochet, he's mostly taken up the mantle of Prince Puma, but he does occasionally switch. This is going to be the second time he has actually ever been Ricochet. The second or third time he has actually ever been Ricochet. So we shall see how that works out later on Raw Week 15. But now, ladies and gentlemen, moving on to SmackDown action here. Nick Jackson of the Young Bucks taking on Xavier Woods of the New Day. Of course, specifically from the New Day, it's going to be Xavier Woods and Big E taking on the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, on the SmackDown exclusive Bound for Glory pay-per-view a couple of days from now. Depending on when I do it or upload it, I don't know. But it's going to be a number one contenders tag team matchup, along with the SmackDown tag team matchup being DX defending their SmackDown tag team championships against the Club, Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows. And this is going to be Gallows and Anderson's third ever matchup on Universe Mode. They won a number one contenders matchup against the New Day, Xavier Woods and Big E. They won the number one contenders matchup on your last episode of Superstars. And ladies and gentlemen, if it was the New Day who won, it was going to be Anderson and Gallows who take on the Young Bucks and the number one contenders staying on Bound for Glory. So that's how it turned out. But apparently things are going to stay the original plan, as it's going to be Xavier Woods and Big E taking on Matt and Nick Jackson of the Young Bucks on Bound for Glory. And now Xavier Woods on top of again nails the elbow drop after a double X handle into a pin. 1, 2, and no, ladies and gentlemen, SmackDown action on Superstars continues. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back on Superstars as we continue on with SmackDown action before Raw brings to you your main event between The Miz and Apollo Crews, a little tiny rivalry in the beginning of Universe Mode that gets renewed here tonight on WWE Superstars. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Xavier Woods bringing down Nick Jackson. During the commercial break, we had many small packages by both Nick and Xavier Woods, but ladies and gentlemen, it's been pretty even for the 4 minutes we are on commercial break, or however minutes, I don't know. We were on commercial break for a couple minutes, I don't know, because I stripped down this video. Anyway. So, of course, ladies and gentlemen, Xavier Woods and Big E taking on the Young Bucks, number one contenders on Bound for Glory, to see who will challenge next for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships, similar to what ECW did for their ECW Tag Team Championships over on the Sin pay-per-view. It's either Xavier Woods off the elbow drop that turned into a crossbody midway, only a 2 count for Xavier Woods a couple moments ago. And now, ladies and gentlemen, Xavier Woods waiting for Nick Jackson, double X handle right to the back of the head. Nails it, does Xavier Woods, has him up, brings down with a code breaker. I don't know what kind of finisher that was supposed to be close to. I completely forgot. Anyway, now Xavier Woods only a 2 count. Nick Jackson kicking out. Xavier Woods going for a pin again, only a 1 count this time. Nick, very resilient in this matchup. Xavier Woods taunting to the crowd, trying to get them riled up here. Of course, we shall see. This is a little time preview. We've had many previews with Xavier Woods taking on Matt Jackson, Xavier Woods taking on Nick Jackson, Big E taking on Nick Jackson, Big E also taking on Matt Jackson. So a little bit of some repeated 1-on-1 singles matches. Super kick out of nowhere moments ago, and another super kick. Super kick party has now started. 3 super kicks, a 4th in a row. Xavier Woods getting knocked out by those 4 super kicks in a row. And now Nick Jackson has him up, trying to go for perhaps the Meltzer driver or something like that. The singles Meltzer driver. Anyway, now Nick, he's very groggy, but kicks Xavier Woods through the announce table and frog splash. Ladies and gentlemen, Xavier Woods not going to sell it one bit. Immediately getting back up, and Xavier Woods on top. Nope, he's not going to jump. Decided thought against it. And now Nick Jackson, now he's in dream streaks here. Not doing all that well against Xavier Woods, but now the small package. Can this one be it? Only a 1 count. Has him, and trying to do a suplex perhaps. Xavier Woods with a nice counter to the leg transmission hold. And super kick turns around into a super kick. And Nick, perhaps another one. Yes, another super kick to Xavier Woods, but Xavier Woods just going to counter. With no time submission hold right there. Multiple super kicks throughout this whole matchup. And another super kick, this time to the back of the head once again. Nick Jackson on a roll here with those super kicks. DDT nails it right to Xavier Woods. Now Nick taunting towards the crowd. He's getting done walled up now. Perhaps going to set for another super kick. The final super kick perhaps in this matchup. We could see Xavier Woods, he's struggling to get up here. Nation, this what SmackDown brings in another super kick. And now Nick Jackson trying to set him up for something. Another super kick. And trying to go for a small package there. Not able to pull it off. Nick Jackson, now another super kick to the back of the head. Another one. A fourth super kick in a row. Super kick party here tonight on WWE Superstars, brought to you by SmackDown and the Young Bucks and Bullet Club. Well, of course, Bullet Club scattered across the Raw, EastW, and SmackDown's rosters. SmackDown's Bullet Club representatives are specifically the Young Bucks, and the newest tag team to SmackDown Universe mode being Corinson and Luke Gallows of the club. So, of course, two Bullet Club tag teams over here on SmackDown. While EastW, they have Adam Cole, Finn Balor, and Kenny Omega. Raw, they have Cody Rhodes and AJ Styles, and we still need the mystery Bullet Club participant over on the Raw roster to debut. As see right there. Speaking of Bullet Club gets a victory, specifically the Young Bucks. Nick Jackson, after his super kicks and the small package, he gets a victory over Xavier Woods here tonight to end off WWE Superstars for the SmackDown portion of the show. Moving on, ladies and gentlemen, main event of WWE Superstars, brought to you by the Raw roster, Apollo Crews and The Miz. One-on-one action up next. We shall see how it is. Hopefully, it's going to be a good matchup. Hopefully, but ladies and gentlemen, Bound for Glory pay-per-view. From left to right, your Money in the Bank participants: Eddie Guerrero, James Storm, Ryback, Cesaro in the middle of the picture, Jay Lethal and Samoa Joe in the very far right, and your main event of the Bound for Glory pay-per-view. World Heavyweight Champion Aleister Black defensive against number one contender since like week 8, Dolph Ziggler, in your main event of the Bound for Glory pay-per-view. That shall be very exciting. Brought to you by the SmackDown roster, SmackDown exclusive pay-per-view. Last brand exclusive pay-per-view before we go into the dual branded pay-per-views between Raw, SmackDown, and EastW, sharing the next 6 pay-per-views. And ladies and gentlemen, the 6th and final pay-per-view of the next 6 shall be, well, one of them's going to be WrestleMania, and then of course the last pay-per-view shall be Armageddon. The end of the Series 1 show will be Armageddon, but the biggest one will be WrestleMania. So we shall see how that works out. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, due to the dual branded pay-per-views going on here in Universe Mode, once we end off Bound for Glory, once we start Week 15, ladies and gentlemen, Raw, SmackDown, EastW, they're going to be sharing their pay-per-views. We shall see how that works out. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, Raw, they do have 4 championships, being the... No, I think they have 5 now. Because we have the X Division Championship, which is Raw's Cruiserweight Championship. We have the Intercontinental Championship, the WWE Championship, the Raw World Tag Titles, and the Raw Women's Championship, where we still need to try and see if we can crown a champion over on Raw. So that's 5 championships. Along with SmackDown having the regular Cruiserweight Championship, that's Seth Rollins holds. Along with the SmackDown Tag Team Championships, SmackDown Women's Championship, the United States Championship, the WCW United States Championship, to be specific, and the World Heavyweight title that, of course, Aleister Black holds. And ECW with the Hardcore Lightweight Championship, that's their version of the Cruiserweight title. The ECW Hardcore Tag Team Championships, the ECW Hardcore Women's title, along with the ECW Hardcore Television title, and, of course, the regular ECW title that is held by Minoru Suzuki. Anyway, now Apollo Crews missing the clothesline. Miz sidestepped that one, missing the double X handle, multiple of those, but now Miz catches Apollo Crews. And Crews with the counter to a slingshot right there. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your Superstars main event, brought to you by the Raw roster. Double unhook Tiger Suplex, nicely done by Crews, into the pin, and almost a 3 count, only 2 though. And now Apollo with the Hurricanrana has him up. Well, he had him up for a second. Time to the crowd. Miz has him DDT by the A-lister. The Miz into the pin. Cruz's foot is on the rope. The invisible referee didn't notice that, but just how it worked out. Miz almost easily got a cheap victory there. Another DDT to Apollo Crews. And now on top rope is the A-lister, and nails a splash. Not all that graceful, but Miz able to make it effective and missed the double X handle. Apollo Crews now has him set up, trying to put something on it. Sunset flip, but Miz has a handful of the ropes right there. And now Tornado DDT, nicely done by Apollo. First ever Intercontinental Champion of Universe Mode, and a 450 leg drop right to Miz. Waiting for him to get up, and never mind. I'm about to say he connected with the dropkick, but no, Miz caught him in a power jar, and another splash by the Miz into the pin. 1, 2, only a 2 count. And ladies and gentlemen, I've noticed for like some of my numerous mode videos where the audio, my reaction times are a little bit late. So it'll be like in the beginning of the video, specifically for the last episode of SmackDown we did last night. The beginning of the show had my my original reaction time, and then in like the middle of the video, it had me reacting, the audio reacting a little bit late, like half a second or 1 second after what happened, which spoils what happens, the moves and stuff. And then once we get to the end of the video, it has my regular reaction time once again. So that's a little bit weird. I just started to notice that. I'm not sure how I can fix that because this is my regular reaction time, but I don't know. You guys could just still enjoy the show. I don't know. Burn hammered by The Miz. Nicely done. Didn't even know he had that in his moveset, but hey, where only a 2 count for Miz. Has him and a reverse DDT into a suplex. Nice done, or just a dragon sleeper suplex to make it, not that difficult to say. And brings him down, does Miz, into the pin. This one has to be at 1, 2, and no. Apollo Crews kicking out, of course. Apollo Crews, first ever Intercontinental Champion. He won in the first ever match of the Raw roster, specifically the first ever match of Humorous Mode as well, where he won a triple threat between himself, Damian Sandow, and Tyson Kidd. So that's how that worked out. And now Sunset Flip, nicely done. 1, 2, and no. Miz kicking out. Apollo Crews, of course, the first ever person he defended the title against was The Miz in the Order Limit pay-per-view, Raw exclusive Order Limit pay-per-view back in week 4. Miz ultimately ended up losing the matchup to, I believe, like a headlock. That's back when we were doing all CPU simulated matches. Now we only do CPU simulated matches for some singles matches that I don't want to play, and also some tag team matches. Well, all tag team matches because I don't want to do tag team matches. Anyway, that gut wrench reverse neckbreaker, nice done. Only a 1 count for Miz though. Has him up. Nope. I was about to say he was gonna do a skull crushing finale, but no. Apollo Crews counter now with that. Now Miz trying to set up for something there. Both men stumble down to the ground, and skull crush finale nails it. Miz to the pin. 1, 2, and no. Apollo Crews kicking out. Miz looking for victory, and of course week 8, another opportunity the Miz got, but in between week 5, 6, and 7, and 8 episodes of the week 4, the week 5, 6, 7, and 8 edition of Raw, of course, where we were able to set up some more storyline by making MVP and Alex Shelley, specifically Shelley, not Sabin, but specifically Alex Shelley of the Mercy Machine Guns, to challenge for the Intercontinental Championship by calling out Apollo Crews and The Miz. And well, Apollo Crews, him still being the Intercontinental Champion, he accepted, and it turned into a fatal 4-way elimination match thanks to General Manager of Raw, Eric Bischoff. And we ultimately knew who won that matchup, as it was Alex Shelley who ended up winning the matchup, and he also pinned Apollo Crews and The Miz, I believe. I could be wrong about the Apollo Crews one, but he did pin The Miz, and ironically enough, because there was storyline ran into it that a couple of weeks before the Live from Evan Street pay-per-view in week 8, where we had the fatal 4-way matchup, it was Chris Sabin who got attacked backstage by The Miz, so Shelley won the Intercontinental Championship for Sabin, and ironically enough, a couple of weeks later, we have a whole storyline between Sabin and Shelley. Well, second to last, the latest live event we did was where we actually had Chris Sabin become the new Intercontinental Champion of Raw by defeating Alex Shelley. And before that, the live event before the last one, I'm trying to explain this in pure detail. I'm not doing a good job at it, but not necessarily Sabin was #1 contender. Blah, blah, blah. That's how that happened. There you go. Anyway, time to call the action now, so you guys won't be bored. Miz now, double X handle right to Apollo Crews. Crews, of course, very tough, very resilient, which is why he was first ever Intercontinental Champion of the Raw roster. Apollo Crews, The Miz, trying to win this matchup to get back up in the rankings for at least something, probably the Intercontinental Championship once again. Anyway, now suplex right to Apollo Crews. One of the most blandest moves. To me, the most original moves you could do in the WWE is a suplex and a bystand. But not as said, The Miz gets victory with the figure 4 letlock, stealing that one from the late great Ric Flair. But not as said, it gets the job done for The Miz here tonight against Apollo Crews. So Miz getting a little bit of some revenge here against Apollo. And ladies and gentlemen, The Miz, he wins this matchup. 1 up on Apollo Crews does The Miz get? He gets a 1-up against Parker. So, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget the Bound for Glory SmackDown exclusive pay-per-view where we have the 6-man Money in the Bank ladder match along with Aleister Black defending his World Heavyweight Championship against Dolph Ziggler. Two of the most hardest working men in numerous mode and on the SmackDown roster go face to face on the Bound for Glory pay-per-view a couple of days or perhaps one day. I don't know when we're going to actually record it or when I'm going to actually upload it, but whenever it happens, the Bound for Glory pay-per-view happens, and that shall be the next episode of Viewers Mode. And then after that, we get into Week 15. Once we do all the regular shows of Week 15, including Raw, AEW, SmackDown, Superstars, we shall move on to the first ever episode of NXT with some superstars from SmackDown, Raw, and ECW. The superstars from Raw, SmackDown, and ECW who show up on NXT, they will stay there as their permanent homes until they get called back up to the main roster. And this time they could perhaps go to a different brand. We don't know. There'll also be some more new created superstars over on the NXT roster. So watch out for that once Week 15 rolls on. Now, let's say thank you guys for watching. Catch you on the next one, and goodbye.